My $80,000 private driveway? Gone. Overnight. Fresh asphalt, yellow speed bumps, HOA property signs everywhere. My grandfather's military spec road from '89, now their community improvement, billed to me at $12,400. Vivian, the HOA president, waited with her clipboard and that smug smirk. Manicured nails tapping the invoice like she owned me.
You should thank us. We fixed your ugly dirt path. Property values just skyrocketed.
The hot tar smell hit like straight betrayal. 37 years of clear ownership erased while I was away busting my ass honestly. She picked the wrong guy to bully. No clue the quiet Army combat engineer she just messed with has spent years perfecting how to turn the tables. Hard. What happened next? Let's just say the entire neighborhood learned a lesson they'll never forget, and it cost them way more than they ever imagined. What would you do if your HOA stole your $80,000 driveway and laughed in your face? Drop your ID in the comments and tell me your state. Meet Garrett Sullivan, 52, retired Army combat engineer, and according to certain clipboard-wielding busybodies, the neighborhood's problem resident. I live alone on 3 acres in Willowbrook Estates, Colorado, though I was here long before it had that pretentious name. Inherited the property from Grandpa in 2010, along with the crown jewel that would spark this whole war, a 400-foot private access road connecting my land to County Highway 34. Grandpa built that road in 1987 with military precision and an $80,000 budget. Professional survey, county permits, engineered to handle 60-ton vehicles. The man who'd hauled tanks across Europe didn't mess around with half measures. Every document filed properly, recorded in granite solid legal language that's weathered 37 years of county record keeping. Back then, my property sat surrounded by cattle pastures and pine forest. The only sounds were wind through trees and the occasional diesel rumble of farm equipment. Perfect for a guy who fixes things for a living and prefers machines to people. Then 2019 brought progress. Some hotshot developer bought the surrounding ranch land, carved it into 60 identical lots, and birthed Willowbrook Estates, complete with covenant restrictions thicker than a small-town phone book. The smell of fresh paint and new money attracted exactly the type of residents you'd expect. Retired middle management types with too much time and strong opinions about everyone else's business. My property predates their HOA by 3 decades. I'm legally excluded from membership, which suited me perfectly. Zero interest in paying $3,000 annually for the privilege of asking permission to paint my own mailbox. That's when fate introduced me to Vivian Ashworth. Picture your worst middle school principal crossed with a bank foreclosure officer, 58 years old, relocated from Phoenix to enjoy mountain tranquility while making everyone else's life miserable. Within 6 months, she'd campaigned herself into the HOA presidency on promises of enhanced property standards and community values. Her first diplomatic visit arrived with a clipboard and that special smile reserved for people she considered beneath her station. Designer sunglasses reflecting my diesel pickup, manicured finger pointing at my work trailer like it carried the plague. "This is a family neighborhood," she announced, voice dripping with practiced authority. "Not some truck stop. Those commercial vehicles are completely inappropriate for our aesthetic standards." The crunch of gravel under her designer heels mixed with the distant buzz of Bob Patterson's riding mower. Even the morning birds seemed to quiet when she spoke. I explained that I'm a licensed contractor running a legitimate business. These trucks pay my mortgage and feed my family of 1. More importantly, she had 0 legal authority over my private property. "Well," she huffed, clicking her gold pen against the clipboard like a tiny gavel, "you really should reconsider joining our community association. We're accomplishing wonderful improvements. Only $3,200 per year. Quite reasonable for the benefits." I pulled out my property documents, the original 1987 survey clearly excluding my land from any future development covenants. She examined the papers like they were written in hieroglyphics, then returned them with a smile that could have frozen antifreeze. "Times change, Mr. Sullivan. We'll see about that." Red flag number 1, right there. Over the next 18 months, Vivian transformed petty harassment into high art. Monthly violation notices for imaginary infractions. My grass was excessive. It wasn't. My workshop generated industrial noise. Hand tools. My truck was leaking fluids. It wasn't. She filed complaints with the county about my unlicensed commercial operation, which consisted of building kitchen cabinets and fixing decks for neighbors who actually liked me. 3 elderly residents sold their homes rather than endure her constant nitpicking about lawn height and mailbox placement. But I stayed patient, kept my head down, did honest work, minded my own business on my own property. Figured she'd eventually find fresh victims to torment. Then I took that week-long installation job in Wyoming. Good money, honest work, blessed silence from Vivian's crusade. Worst decision I ever made, leaving that woman unsupervised for 7 consecutive days. I pulled into my driveway Tuesday evening, diesel engine rumbling over what should have been familiar gravel. Instead, my tires rolled smooth over fresh black asphalt that gleamed under the setting sun like spilled oil. Yellow speed bumps, crisp white center lines, and 3 brand new signs that made my blood pressure spike. Private property, HOA members only. My road, my grandfather's road, paved without permission while I was busting my ass in Wyoming. Vivian's white Escalade blocked my driveway like a territorial claim. She stood beside it with that clipboard, waiting for my reaction with the patience of a spider who just felt something hit her web. "Congratulations," she called out, voice sweet as antifreeze. "We've improved your little dirt path. Your contribution comes to $12,400. The smell of fresh tar mixed with pure audacity hung in the evening air. I could taste the petroleum fumes on my tongue. 37 years of clear ownership, and this woman had the nerve to bill me for paving over my own property. "This is my private road, Vivian. You had no right to touch it." Her smile widened. "Actually, we have every right. HOA bylaws grant us improvement authority over shared community infrastructure." She held up a folder thick with official-looking papers. "Plus, we're claiming ownership through adverse possession. Your private road has been used by community members for years." I dealt with property disputes during my Army days, learned that adverse possession requires open, notorious, and exclusive use of someone's property for 15 to 20 years, depending on state law. Simply using a road doesn't transfer ownership. You need documented, continuous occupation that actually excludes the real owner from their property. Vivian clearly hadn't done her homework. I pulled out my truck's center console and retrieved the original 1987 property survey, county-recorded easement documentation, and maintenance receipts dating back 15 years. The papers crinkled in the evening breeze as I spread them across my tailgate like evidence at a crime scene. "See this line here?" I pointed to the surveyor's marks. "Private access easement, lot 47. That's my lot number. This road is explicitly marked as my private property, recorded with Adams County, maintained at my expense since 2010. Vivian's confident expression flickered like a candle in wind, but she rallied quickly. "Your paperwork is outdated. We have an attorney reviewing everything. Modern community standards supersede individual property claims." The woman was making up law as she went along. Community standards don't override recorded property deeds. That's not how America works. She pulled out her phone and started typing furiously. "I'm calling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow night, 7 p.m. sharp. You're expected to attend and explain your refusal to contribute to community improvements." The sound of her manicured nails tapping against her phone screen, mixed with the distant hum of neighbors starting to gather on their porches, drawn by the unusual sight of Vivian in full combat mode. Mrs. Henderson's porch light flickered on across the street. Within an hour, the neighborhood Facebook group exploded. Vivian posted a lengthy explanation about difficult residents refusing to pay their fair share for infrastructure improvements. She painted me as some kind of freeloader taking advantage of community generosity. The comments section turned into digital warfare. Team Vivian. "Rules are rules. Everyone should contribute equally. Some people just want something for nothing." Team Reality. "It's literally his road. Check the county records. How is this even legal?" I spent the evening researching every document related to the HOA's formation. 3 hours of paperwork archaeology revealed something that made my coffee taste bitter. Vivian's original neighborhood survey had accidentally included my road within the HOA's proposed boundaries, despite my property being explicitly excluded from the development. The county had never updated their records to reflect this fraudulent claim. Someone had deliberately tried to steal my road on paper before stealing it with asphalt. This wasn't neighbor drama. This was organized theft with legal documentation. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a private message from Janet Mills, the property appraiser 3 houses down. The blue glow of my phone screen hurt my tired eyes as I read her words. Garrett, you need to know. Vivian came to me last month asking about road improvement impact on property values. She specifically asked how much paving your road would increase sale prices for HOA properties. This was planned. My blood went cold. Clear evidence of premeditation. Vivian hadn't just decided to improve my road on a whim. She'd researched, planned, and calculated the financial benefit to her precious community before committing grand theft. The next morning brought fresh insults. I walked outside to find a bright yellow vehicle boot clamped onto my truck's front tire like some kind of mechanical parasite. A laminated notice zip-tied to my windshield explained that my vehicle was illegally parked on HOA property and subject to $200 in removal fees plus $40 daily storage costs. The metallic taste of rage filled my mouth as I called the Adams County Sheriff's Office. Deputy Martinez arrived within 20 minutes, examined my property documents, and had the boot removed in 5 minutes flat. "Ma'am," he told Vivian, who'd appeared with her clipboard the moment his patrol car pulled up, "this gentleman owns this road. You can't boot vehicles on private property that isn't yours." But Vivian's smile never wavered. "We'll see about that, Deputy. Our attorney will have something to say." The metallic click of the boot being removed echoed like a gunshot across the quiet neighborhood. Game on. The emergency HOA board meeting took place in Vivian's living room, because apparently democracy works better when surrounded by her collection of porcelain cats and motivational wall art about manifesting abundance. I arrived with Patricia Finley, the property rights attorney I'd hired that afternoon. Patricia specialized in HOA disputes, a sharp woman in her 40s who collected legal victories like some people collect stamps. 5 board members sat around Vivian's dining table looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. The overwhelming smell of vanilla candles mixed with the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vivian began, shuffling through her stack of papers with theatrical importance, "we're here to address Mr. Sullivan's selfish refusal to pay his fair share for community improvements." Patricia set her briefcase on Vivian's coffee table with a satisfying thunk. "Actually, we're here because your client paved over private property without permission, then tried to extort $12,000. In legal terms, that's called theft and fraud." You could have heard a pin drop in that vanilla-scented war room. Board member Tom Bradley, a retired insurance guy who clearly knew trouble when he saw it, shifted nervously. "Wait, nobody mentioned theft when we voted on this road project." Bingo. I'd suspected the whole board wasn't in on Vivian's scheme. "The board approved community infrastructure improvements," Vivian said quickly, her voice climbing an octave. "Sullivan's driveway connects to county roads. It's shared access." Patricia opened her briefcase like a magician revealing her best trick. Documents spread across Vivian's pristine coffee table, original surveys, deed transfers, maintenance records spanning 15 years. "This proves continuous, exclusive ownership since 1987. What you've done isn't just wrong, it's criminal." The vanilla candle flickered as if even it was shocked. Board member Sarah Kim, a librarian who looked like she'd never jaywalked in her life, raised her trembling hand. "Vivian, you told us this was shared community property. You said Mr. Sullivan had already agreed." Vivian's face went red above her pearl choker. "I said some residents might initially resist contributing to obvious improvements." Patricia and I locked eyes. Vivian had straight up lied to her own board to steal my road. The meeting exploded faster than a demolition job. 3 board members demanded to see Vivian's legal documentation. She produced what looked like a map drawn by a kindergartner with a broken crayon, claiming it showed revised community boundaries. Patricia examined the amateur artwork and actually snorted with laughter. "Ma'am, you can't redraw county property lines with a Sharpie and call it legal." Tom Bradley stood up so fast his chair scraped across Vivian's hardwood like fingernails on a chalkboard. "I resign, effective right now. I won't be part of whatever crazy train this is." The front door slammed behind him, letting in the cool evening air and the sound of his car peeling out. 2 more board members followed within minutes, leaving Vivian's porcelain cats to witness her empire crumbling. By Saturday morning, Vivian had escalated to pure vandalism. I discovered my mailbox post cut clean through with power tools, the metal box lying in the ditch like fresh roadkill. The cut was too precise for accident. Someone had spent time and effort destroying my property. Sunday brought rock salt scattered across my road like some kind of bizarre winter ritual. My security cameras, installed after the mailbox incident, captured Vivian's nephew Marcus creeping around at 2 a.m. with a bag of road salt, apparently believing it would damage asphalt in summer heat. Kid was dumber than a bag of wet hammers, but his late-night vandalism made excellent evidence. Monday morning felt like Christmas. 3 county inspectors showed up responding to anonymous complaints about my illegal business operations, hazardous materials, and excessive noise. Each inspector found 0 violations and left increasingly pissed about wasting their time on garbage reports. The sound of their clipboards snapping shut was music to my ears. Tuesday brought the phone call that changed everything. My insurance agent Dave Morrison, friend since high school, called with news that made my coffee taste like victory. "Garrett, someone filed a fraudulent claim saying they own your road and want reimbursement for the paving. But here's the kicker. The insurance company ran a routine background check." I gripped the phone tighter. "And? Vivian Ashworth has 3 prior insurance fraud attempts on her record. Phoenix PD investigated her twice for false claims. She's flagged in the system. My quiet neighbor wasn't just a petty tyrant. She was a career criminal who'd moved to Colorado to find fresh victims." "Dave, what happens now?" "State insurance fraud unit gets involved. This could be felony charges if they find a pattern." Wednesday evening, I discovered Vivian had spray-painted fake property lines across my road. Bright orange arrows pointing toward her house like she'd claimed some kind of territorial expansion. The acrid smell of fresh paint mixed with my growing satisfaction. Every desperate move she made was more evidence for the prosecutor. That night, I realized Vivian had handed me the perfect weapon to destroy her completely. But first, I needed to call my army buddy who worked for the state transportation department. Thursday morning brought Jackson Torres to my doorstep, 6'2" of pure engineering expertise wrapped in a state DOT uniform and carrying the kind of briefcase that meant someone's day was about to get very complicated. "Garrett, you magnificent bastard," he grinned, crushing my hand in a grip that could bend rebar. "When you called about property violations, I figured some neighbor was whining over a fence line. This?" He gestured at my paved road with the reverence of a man who understood infrastructure. "This is felony theft disguised as community improvement." The aroma of his black coffee mixed with morning pine scent as Jackson spread county maps across my tailgate like a general planning invasion. 23 years of friendship since our combat engineer days, and he'd never failed to deliver when I needed backup. "Your grandfather's easement documentation is fortress-level bulletproof," he said, tracing property lines with a calloused finger. "But here's the beautiful part. This HOA's formation documents show deliberate boundary manipulation. Someone tried to legally steal your road before they physically stole it." His words hit like artillery rounds. Premeditated fraud with paper trail evidence. "What's my nuclear option?" Jackson's smile turned absolutely predatory. "Private road owners in Colorado have God-level authority over access permissions. You can terminate usage rights with 72 hours written notice. No exceptions, no appeals, no requirement to provide alternative access." That afternoon, Patricia Finley arrived carrying discovery documents that made Christmas morning look disappointing. Her briefcase clicked open like a treasure chest revealing the HOA's financial records. "Vivian funded your road theft using emergency assessment powers," Patricia explained, spreading bank statements across my kitchen table like evidence at a murder trial. "She charged every household $13.79 without board approval. That's unauthorized extraction of $80,000 from families who had no idea they were funding her crime spree." The papers rustled with the sound of justice as I examined itemized receipts. Professional paving, speed bump installation, signage materials, all purchased with money stolen from neighbors who thought they were paying legitimate fees. Criminal charges? Insurance fraud investigation launches Monday. State prosecutor loves her Phoenix criminal background. 3 prior fraud attempts make this federal felony territory with mandatory prison time. Patricia's smile could have cut diamonds. Friday delivered Vivian's most desperate gambit yet. I returned from picking up security equipment to find a professional guard stationed at my property line. Some kid in a discount uniform blocking my own driveway like he was protecting the Pentagon. "Sir, you need to stop right there," he announced, hand hovering over pepper spray like he'd caught an international fugitive. "This is restricted HOA property." Poor kid couldn't have been 25, probably making $15 an hour to enforce someone else's delusions. The afternoon sun beat down on his polyester uniform as reality slowly dawned. I showed him my property deed and county survey. His confidence evaporated faster than water on hot asphalt when he realized he'd been hired to illegally blockade a private road. "Ma'am," he called to Vivian, who was watching from her porch like Napoleon surveying Waterloo. "This gentleman has legal proof of ownership. I cannot prevent access to his own property." The kid stripped off his security company shirt and left it hanging on my mailbox post like a white flag of surrender. Even minimum wage rent-a-cops weren't stupid enough to participate in Vivian's fantasy. Saturday evening brought the conversation that changed everything. Bob Patterson knocked carrying 2 ice-cold beers and wearing the expression of a man who'd finally reached his breaking point. "Garrett, this stops now." Bob's weathered hands trembled slightly as he handed me a Coors. "Vivian's been terrorizing everyone. Mrs. Henderson got slapped with $300 in fines for bird feeders attracting pest species. The Johnsons were cited for parking in their own driveway because it supposedly blocked community sightlines." The bitter beer taste mixed with years of neighborhood frustration as Bob continued. "She's systematically driving out anyone who won't submit to her authority. 7 families sold their homes rather than endure constant harassment. My own granddaughter is afraid to visit because Vivian screams at kids for excessive playground noise." This wasn't just about my road anymore. Vivian had turned an entire community into her personal dictatorship. "What are you asking, Bob?" His eyes hardened like steel. "Whatever you're planning, I'm in. This woman has destroyed everything decent about our neighborhood." Sunday brought the intelligence that turned this from property dispute into total warfare. Janet Mills called with information that made victory taste inevitable. "Garrett, I've been analyzing property sales data since Vivian took power. Her improvements haven't increased values. They've crashed them by 14%. Legal complications from her unauthorized projects are making houses impossible to sell." The irony was perfect. Vivian's entire justification for stealing my road, enhanced property values, was destroying the community she claimed to protect. Monday morning, I made the call that would end this war permanently. "Rodriguez Brothers Towing, this is Garrett Sullivan. I need to discuss large-scale vehicle removal from my private property. How many trucks would you need to tow 58 cars simultaneously?" Carlos Rodriguez's laughter echoed through my workshop like the sound of approaching victory. Tuesday morning, Patricia Finley arrived looking like a lawyer who'd just discovered buried treasure. She kicked off her heels at my door and spread legal documents across my kitchen table with the reverence of someone handling explosive materials. "Garrett, we found the kill shot." Her finger stabbed at highlighted text in Colorado Transportation Code. Section 42-4-1409. Private road owners have absolute termination authority. No appeals, no exceptions, no mercy. The morning coffee in my mug had gone cold, but my blood was heating up fast. 3 years of harassment, and this woman had just handed me a legal nuclear weapon. English translation? Patricia's smile could have powered my workshop for a week. You can ban every single vehicle from your road with 72 hours notice. Period. They can cry, they can sue, they can call the governor. Doesn't matter. Your road, your rules. The kitchen door banged open as Jackson Torres arrived carrying survey equipment and wearing the expression of an engineer who'd found structural gold. He spread neighborhood maps across my counter, the papers crackling like fire as they overlapped Patricia's legal arsenal. "Brother, this gets beautiful." His calloused finger traced traffic patterns on the detailed survey. 43 households use your road as primary access. Without it, they're looking at a 6-mile detour through Pine Valley Township every single day. My heart hammered against my ribs as the geographic reality sank in. Vivian's precious subdivision was essentially held hostage by the road she'd tried to steal. Emergency services? Fire, ambulance, police maintain access during emergencies, Jackson confirmed. But soccer practice, grocery runs, commuting to work? He shrugged. That's your decision now. The smell of fresh pine drifted through my open window, mixing with the scent of impending justice as Patricia pulled out financial documents that made my jaw clench. Forensic accounting revealed the full scope. Road project cost $87,000 total. Vivian charged residents $80 through fake emergency assessments, then pocketed $7 as administrative fees. Her voice carried the cold fury of someone who'd uncovered systematic theft. She's been running a financial scam disguised as community improvement. The numbers hit like physical blows. Every neighbor had been robbed to fund the theft of my property. It gets worse, Jackson added, consulting his clipboard. County planning has zero record of proper HOA formation. Vivian never filed legal charter documents. This entire organization is fictional. The silence in my kitchen felt heavy enough to crush bones. 3 years of fines, harassment, and intimidation, all based on an HOA that legally didn't exist. Patricia began stacking documents with surgical precision. Here's the battle plan. Formal termination notices delivered to all 58 households simultaneously. 72 hours later, Rodriguez Brothers removes every unauthorized vehicle. The plan crystallized like ice forming on a windshield, not revenge. Justice delivered through channels Vivian couldn't argue with. What about innocent neighbors caught in crossfire? They're victims too, Patricia said, her voice softening. Vivian robbed them to pave your road. Full restitution comes after criminal proceedings conclude. Jackson rolled up his maps with the satisfaction of a demolition expert who'd calculated the perfect explosive placement. Your grandfather engineered that road for 60-ton military vehicles. The irony is poetry. Vivian used superior infrastructure to steal from the man who actually owns it. I walked them both to the door, my mind already racing through logistics. 72 hours to prepare the most expensive property law lesson in state history. One final detail. Patricia paused at my threshold, her expression turning predatory. Insurance investigation uncovered Vivian's Phoenix background. 3 prior fraud schemes involving fake improvements and unauthorized assessments. She's a career criminal who moved here hunting fresh victims. As their cars disappeared down my road, storm clouds gathered overhead like an omen. Somewhere in this neighborhood, Vivian was probably planning tomorrow's harassment, completely unaware her entire criminal operation was about to detonate. Time to teach 58 households about consequences. Wednesday morning tasted like pure electricity. The crisp mountain air carried the scent of pine needles and approaching justice as I spread operational plans across my workshop table like a combat engineer preparing to breach enemy defenses. Carlos Rodriguez arrived at precisely 8 a.m., his diesel engine rumbling down my road like controlled thunder. Behind him, a convoy of Rodriguez Brothers trucks filled my driveway. 12 tow vehicles, 2 flatbed haulers, and enough chrome to blind satellites. Senor Sullivan, Carlos grinned, his handshake threatening to pulverize bones. 58 cars in one morning? My grandfather fought in 3 wars and never saw action this beautiful. The morning sun blazed off polished bumpers as Carlos spread tactical deployment charts across my tailgate. Each truck had specific assignments, target vehicles mapped by accessibility and difficulty level. Vivian's Escalade gets the honor treatment, I specified, tapping her location on the neighborhood diagram. I want that woman watching through her kitchen window when you hook her precious luxury barge. Carlos's belly laugh could have triggered avalanches. My nephew Miguel drives our fastest rig. That bruja will see her ride disappearing before her designer coffee gets lukewarm. Patricia Finley arrived carrying enough legal documentation to choke a courthouse. Her briefcase exploded open like a magician's trick, revealing termination notices printed on letterhead so official it practically hummed with authority. Hand-delivered by certified process server, she announced, arranging papers with surgical precision. Every household receives identical notices citing specific Colorado transportation statutes. No loopholes, no appeals, no crying to mommy. The documents crackled like fire as I examined each beautifully crafted legal death sentence. Jackson Torres backed his state DOT vehicle into position, unloading survey equipment that belonged in a NASA control room. Digital cameras, motion sensors, and computer tablets that could probably track migrating butterflies. Real-time documentation system, he explained, mounting cameras at strategic choke points. License plate recognition, timestamp verification, high-definition evidence for court proceedings. This operation will be documented better than moon landings. That's when my doorbell rang with the nervous rhythm of someone delivering bad news. Bob Patterson stood on my porch looking like he'd swallowed glass, flanked by Janet Mills and 2 neighbors I barely recognized. Their faces carried the expression of people who'd discovered something terrible. "Garrett, we need to talk." Bob's voice cracked like old leather. "Vivian knows something's coming." My coffee mug stopped halfway to my lips. "What do you mean?" Janet stepped forward, clutching a manila folder like evidence in a murder trial. "She called an emergency neighborhood meeting for tonight, mandatory attendance. She's claiming you've threatened to illegally blockade community access roads. The mountain breeze suddenly felt colder against my face. "There's more," Tom Bradley added, his insurance investigator instincts showing. "She's hired a security company to patrol the neighborhood starting tomorrow. Claims she's protecting residents from your unstable veteran behavior." My workshop fell silent, except for the distant sound of Carlos muttering Spanish curses that probably violated several international treaties. "How did she find out?" I asked. Sarah Kim, quiet librarian turned neighborhood intelligence operative, produced printed screenshots that made my blood pressure spike. Someone leaked information to the HOA Facebook group. Anonymous post warning about illegal property seizure attempts and suggesting residents park vehicles off-site. The taste of betrayal was bitter as burnt coffee. Patricia's legal mind kicked into overdrive. If residents move cars before Saturday, the psychological impact disappears. We need those driveways full for maximum effect. Jackson studied his deployment maps like a general whose battle plans had been compromised. Security patrols could complicate towing operations. Private guards have no legal authority to interfere, but they can create delays and safety issues. Carlos cracked his knuckles like someone preparing for physical combat. My crews have handled security interference before. Usually takes one phone call to county sheriff to clear up confusion. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across my property as we recalibrated strategy. What started as surgical precision had become improvised warfare. "New plan," I announced. "Process servers deliver notices tonight immediately after Vivian's meeting. 72-hour countdown begins when residents are gathered in one location. Maximum witness impact." Patricia's smile returned with predatory intensity. "Psychological warfare. Hit them when they're already stressed about your unstable behavior." Thursday evening brought storm clouds that looked like nature's approval of our revised timeline. As Vivian's emergency meeting convened in the community center, 4 process servers fanned across Willowbrook Estates like legal commandos. By 9 p.m., every household had received termination notices that would transform their peaceful Friday evening into 36 hours of pure panic. My phone started ringing before I'd finished my celebratory beer. Terrified neighbors, outraged board members, and Vivian herself leaving voicemails that progressed from demanding explanations to threatening lawsuits to borderline hysteria. Friday night, I sat on my porch listening to the beautiful symphony of absolute chaos erupting across the neighborhood. Saturday morning would deliver the most expensive lesson in property rights Colorado had ever witnessed. Victory tasted like morning coffee mixed with pure satisfaction. Friday morning arrived with Vivian's desperation thick enough to taste. The smell of fresh panic mixed with morning dew as I watched her white Escalade tear down my road like she was fleeing a crime scene, which technically she was. My security cameras captured her first stop, Marcus Ashworth's apartment complex, where her nephew lived in subsidized housing while pretending to practice law. 30 minutes later, they returned together, Marcus clutching a briefcase like it contained nuclear codes instead of his community college legal education. By noon, a rented U-Haul truck appeared in Vivian's driveway. Through my workshop window, I watched her loading boxes with the frantic energy of someone preparing for evacuation. The metallic bang of the truck's ramp echoed across the neighborhood like gunshots. But the real show started when she knocked on my door carrying a manila envelope thick enough to choke a horse. "Mr. Sullivan," she announced, her voice quivering between rage and terror. "I'm prepared to offer a reasonable settlement to avoid unnecessary legal complications." The envelope contained a cashier's check for $15,000, more money than she'd probably seen since her Phoenix fraud schemes collapsed. "Consider this a goodwill gesture," she continued, that fake smile twitching like a broken puppet. "We can resolve this misunderstanding like civilized neighbors." I examined the check with the attention it deserved, approximately 3 seconds before handing it back. "Vivian, this covers about 12% of what you've stolen from me. Plus, you'd need to compensate every neighbor you've robbed, resign from your fictional HOA, and issue a public apology, admitting 3 years of fraud." Her composure cracked like ice on hot pavement. "You can't do this. 58 families depend on that road for access." "Should have thought about that before you decided to steal it." The check fluttered to my porch floor like a white flag of surrender as she stormed off, designer heels clicking against concrete like machine gun fire. Friday afternoon brought the security parade. 3 patrol cars from elite community protection services rolled through the neighborhood like an occupying army. Rent-a-cops in polyester uniforms positioned themselves at various street corners, radios crackling with the kind of self-importance that comes from making $12 an hour. Carlos Rodriguez called with an update that made my day considerably brighter. Senor, these security pendejos are parked on public streets. County Sheriff confirmed they have zero authority to interfere with legal towing operations on private property. The irony tasted sweeter than victory whiskey. Vivian was paying security guards to watch helplessly while her world collapsed. Friday evening delivered the neighborhood meeting from hell. Through my workshop window, I could see the community center parking lot packed with cars and the kind of angry crowd that forms when people realize they've been systematically robbed. Bob Patterson called with live updates that sounded like war correspondents reporting from battle zones. Vivian's claiming you're an unstable veteran planning terrorist activities, he reported, his voice barely audible over shouting in the background. 3 families are demanding her immediate resignation. Tom Bradley just called her a criminal fraud to her face. The sound of community revolt was music to my ears. Janet Mills presented financial evidence of unauthorized assessments. Sarah Kim read aloud from Vivian's Phoenix fraud convictions. This woman's getting crucified by her own neighbors. By 9 p.m., 7 more households had withdrawn from HOA membership, if membership in a legally non-existent organization was even possible. Saturday morning dawned with the clarity of perfect justice. At 6 a.m. sharp, Rodriguez Brothers' staging area came alive with diesel engines warming up like mechanical predators preparing to hunt. My phone rang with Vivian's final desperate gambit. "Sullivan," she screamed, her voice cracking like breaking glass. "I'll have you arrested for extortion. Marcus found a legal precedent that proves—" "Vivian," I interrupted, watching 12 tow trucks roll into formation outside my window. "Your nephew couldn't find legal precedent for jaywalking violations. Enjoy your weekend." The call ended with her shrieking threats that would have been hilarious if they weren't so pathetic. 6:45 a.m. brought the last-minute revelation that made this operation absolutely perfect. Jackson Torres called with intelligence that crystallized everything. "Garrett, county records show Vivian never paid property taxes on the road improvement. She owes the state $12,000 in unpaid assessments, plus penalties. When her vehicles get impounded today, she'll also receive tax liens on her house." The mountain air carried the sweet scent of approaching victory as I watched Carlos Rodriguez position his lead truck at the top of my road. 7 a.m. sharp. Time to teach 58 households the most expensive lesson about property rights in Colorado history. The taste of justice was already flooding my mouth as I gave Carlos the signal to commence operations. Everything Vivian had stolen was about to disappear in the most beautiful display of legal consequences I'd ever witnessed. Saturday, 7 a.m. Game time. The morning air felt electric with anticipation as Carlos Rodriguez's lead truck rumbled down my road like mechanized justice. Behind him, 11 more tow vehicles followed in perfect formation. Chrome bumpers gleaming, diesel engines purring, hydraulic systems ready to deliver the most expensive lesson in property rights Colorado had ever witnessed. The smell of diesel exhaust mixed with morning dew created an intoxicating cocktail of impending victory. "First target acquired," Carlos radioed, his voice crackling with professional satisfaction. "White Escalade, driveway position Alpha 1. Miguel, you're cleared hot." Through my workshop window, I watched Vivian's precious luxury tank get hoisted into the air like a trophy. The hydraulic whine of the lift system echoed across the silent neighborhood like a symphony of consequences. That's when Vivian exploded from her front door in a pink bathrobe and flip-flops, screaming threats that could probably be heard from space. "You can't do this. That's my car. I'm calling the police." Miguel Rodriguez, Carlos's nephew and apparently the family comedian, leaned out his cab window with a grin that could power small cities. "Ma'am, police already been notified. This is legal property enforcement. Have a blessed morning." The Escalade disappeared down County Highway 34 like a white whale being dragged to sea, leaving Vivian standing in her driveway looking like someone had just stolen Christmas. But the real show was just beginning. Tow truck number 2 targeted the Johnsons' BMW sedan. Number 3 went after the Martinez family's Honda Pilot. Within minutes, the neighborhood echoed with the mechanical symphony of vehicles being systematically removed from existence. My security cameras captured everything in high-definition glory: residents stumbling out of houses in bathrobes, coffee cups falling from shocked hands, cell phones appearing like magic as people documented the greatest property rights enforcement action in state history. The elite security guards, all 3 of them, stood on street corners, looking like confused mall cops watching a bank robbery they couldn't prevent. Their radios squawked with increasingly panicked communications as they realized their $12 an hour authority meant absolutely nothing against legal towing operations. "Base, this is Unit 2, one guard stammered into his radio. "Vehicles are being removed rapidly. Request instructions." The response crackled back. "Stay clear of private property. Do not interfere with legal operations." Even rent-a-cops understood property law better than Vivian. 7:15 a.m. brought the first attempted negotiation. Tom Bradley approached my workshop wearing pajamas in desperation, waving his car keys like white flags. "Garrett, please, I never supported this road theft. My wife needs her car for dialysis appointments." I'd prepared for this moment, the innocent casualties caught in Vivian's crossfire. "Tom, your wife's medical needs are covered. Jackson Torres arranged alternative transportation through county services, but your car stays impounded until this mess gets resolved legally." The sound of hydraulic systems continued their mechanical chorus as vehicle after vehicle disappeared into Rodriguez brothers' fleet. 7:30 a.m. delivered Vivian's final desperate gambit. She appeared at my property line carrying a bullhorn and what looked like a restraining order printed on official letterhead. "Attention, everyone!" her amplified voice screeched across the neighborhood. "I have a court order prohibiting this illegal seizure." Patricia Finley materialized beside me like a legal ninja, examining Vivian's court order with professional contempt. "This is a civil complaint form downloaded from the county website," Patricia announced loud enough for gathering crowds to hear. "It has no legal authority to stop anything. She's waving around blank paperwork like it's a magic spell." The laughter from assembled neighbors sounded like justice itself. Marcus Ashworth chose this moment to make his grand entrance, screeching up in a rental car and brandishing what appeared to be law books stolen from a library. "Uncle Sullivan," he shouted, apparently forgetting we weren't related, "I demand immediate cessation of these illegal activities based on Colorado Revised Statute." "Kid," Carlos Rodriguez interrupted, stepping out of his cab with the casual authority of someone who'd towed cars since before Marcus was born. "Unless you got a badge or a real court order, you need to step back and let professionals work." The metallic clang of another car being lifted echoed Marcus's legal education hitting reality. 8 a.m. brought media attention that transformed local property dispute into statewide news event. Channel 9's news van arrived first, followed by 3 more stations and what looked like national network satellite trucks. Sarah Kim from Channel 9 approached with microphones and camera crews, her professional smile barely containing obvious excitement about covering the story of the year. "Mr. Sullivan, can you explain what's happening here this morning?" The gathering crowd, neighbors, security guards, media crews, and Rodriguez brothers drivers, all turned toward me like an audience waiting for the climactic speech. This was it, the moment when 3 years of harassment, theft, and intimidation would be answered with the most beautiful demonstration of property rights in American history. Time to deliver the mic drop moment this story deserved. I looked directly into Sarah Kim's camera lens, 58 empty driveways stretching behind me like victory monuments, and delivered the line I'd been rehearsing for 3 years. Sometimes you have to remind people that property rights aren't suggestions. The morning sun caught the chrome bumpers of Rodriguez brothers' trucks as they continued their systematic removal operation. Each hydraulic whine, each metallic clank of chains, each diesel engine rumble created a mechanical symphony that sounded exactly like justice being served at industrial scale. My family built this road in 1987, before most of these people were even thinking about Colorado. I held up Grandpa's original construction photos and the county recorded property deed. Vivian Ashworth decided she could steal 37 years of legal ownership while I was working out of state. She was wrong. Yet the crowd of neighbors, media crews, and increasingly nervous security guards hung on every word like spectators at the most expensive sporting event in state history. Vivian chose this moment to make her final stand, pushing through the crowd with Marcus trailing behind her like a lost puppy carrying law books he'd probably never read. "This is harassment! This is illegal! This man is unstable!" she screamed at the camera, her pink bathrobe flapping in the morning breeze like a flag of surrender. 58 families are being held hostage by a disturbed veteran." The silence that followed was so complete you could hear pine needles falling. Deputy Martinez from Adams County Sheriff's Office stepped forward, his uniform carrying the kind of authority that made everyone, including Vivian, shut up and listen. "Ma'am, I've reviewed all documentation. Mr. Sullivan owns this road legally and absolutely. These vehicles are trespassing on private property after receiving proper legal notice. Rodriguez Brothers is conducting authorized removal operations. But people need their cars, Vivian shrieked, desperation cracking her voice like breaking glass. Should have thought about that before you stole his road, called out Mrs. Henderson, the elderly neighbor Vivian had terrorized over bird feeders. The crowd murmured agreement that sounded like rolling thunder. Channel 9's microphone captured every beautiful word as neighbors who'd endured years of HOA harassment finally found their voices. She fined me $300 for parking in my own driveway, shouted Janet Mills. Charged my family $2,000 for unauthorized garden modifications. I planted tomatoes, added Tom Bradley. Made my kids stop riding bikes because of excessive recreational noise, called Sarah Kim. The media feeding frenzy intensified as reporters realized this wasn't just property dispute, it was community uprising against years of systematic abuse. Marcus Ashworth stepped forward with his community college confidence, waving legal documents like sacred scrolls. I'm representing the HOA and demanding immediate cessation of these illegal activities under Colorado. Son, Deputy Martinez interrupted, examining Marcus's paperwork with professional amusement. This HOA doesn't legally exist. No proper charter, no filed incorporation documents, no recognized legal standing. You're representing a fictional organization. The sound of Marcus's legal career deflating was audible from space. 8:30 a.m. brought the moment that made everything perfect. Channel 9's news helicopter appeared overhead, broadcasting live footage of the most comprehensive vehicle removal operation in Colorado history to viewers across the state. From aerial perspective, Willowbrook Estates looked like a neighborhood that had been hit by some kind of car-stealing tornado. Empty driveways, confused residents in bathrobes, and Rodriguez Brothers trucks methodically completing their mission with military precision. Senor Sullivan, Carlos Rodriguez called out, consulting his clipboard with obvious satisfaction. 56 vehicles removed successfully. 2 remaining targets in progress. The final 2 cars belonged to Vivian's most loyal supporters, the couple who'd helped her manipulate board votes and harass dissenting neighbors. Watching their vehicles disappear felt like watching the last pieces of Vivian's empire crumble into dust. Sarah Kim thrust her microphone toward me for the closing statement. Any final words for people watching this unprecedented property rights enforcement? I looked at the crowd of neighbors who'd been bullied, the media crews documenting justice in real time, the security guards learning expensive lessons about actual authority, and Vivian standing in her driveway looking like someone who'd just realized consequences were real. Property rights are the foundation of American freedom. When someone tries to steal what your family built with honest work, you have every legal right to defend it. I gestured toward the empty driveways that told the story better than any speech. This is what happens when bullies discover they picked the wrong person to mess with. The taste of complete victory flooded my mouth as Rodriguez Brothers' final truck rumbled down my road, carrying away the last symbol of Vivian's failed dictatorship. 9 a.m. sharp, mission accomplished, 58 vehicles impounded, 1 neighborhood bully defeated, 37 years of property ownership successfully defended. The morning air smelled like diesel exhaust, pine needles, and the sweetest justice Colorado had ever witnessed. Victory tasted exactly like I'd always imagined it would. The aftermath was more beautiful than I'd dared imagine. By noon Saturday, 47 vehicles had been retrieved from Rodriguez Brothers' storage facility. Average cost per household, $230, towing fees plus half-day storage. Vivian's Escalade remained in impound for 6 days while she scrambled to gather money she'd blown on legal fees and security theater. The sound of neighbors writing checks and signing liability forms was sweeter than morning songbirds. Sunday brought the community meeting that changed everything. Bob Patterson organized it in the old fire station, since Vivian's rain had made the community center feel contaminated. 53 households attended, the largest neighborhood gathering in 3 years. The air smelled like fresh coffee and hope as Tom Bradley stood up with financial documents that made everyone gasp. Vivian charged us $212,000 in unauthorized assessments over 3 years, he announced, his insurance investigator background showing. Every penny was illegal under Colorado HOA law. Janet Mills followed with property value analysis that made people actually cheer. Since Vivian became president, our home values dropped 14%. Legal complications from her unauthorized projects made houses impossible to sell. The irony was perfect. Vivian's justification for stealing my road had been property value enhancement, when she'd actually been destroying the community she claimed to protect. Monday brought criminal consequences that tasted like aged whiskey. Patricia Finley called with updates that made my coffee taste like celebration. State Insurance Fraud Unit filed felony charges. With her Phoenix conviction history, Vivian's looking at mandatory minimum 3 years in federal prison. Patricia's voice carried the satisfaction of a prosecutor who delivered justice, plus full restitution to every defrauded household and your legal fees. Tuesday delivered Vivian's resignation letter, 3 sentences of pure defeat admitting no wrongdoing but announcing her immediate departure from all neighborhood positions. Marcus quietly withdrew as HOA legal counsel and probably started updating his resume for positions that didn't require actual legal knowledge. By Wednesday, a for sale sign appeared in Vivian's front yard. By Friday, she'd moved to Arizona citing family health issues, the universal excuse for fleeing criminal consequences. The neighborhood transformation was remarkable. Without Vivian's constant harassment, families started spending time outdoors again. Children rode bikes without fear of noise violation citations. Mrs. Henderson's bird feeders returned, attracting cardinals and finches that filled morning air with actual music instead of clipboard tyranny. 6 months later, I established the Willowbrook Property Rights Defense Fund, a scholarship providing $5,000 annually to law students studying property rights advocacy. Funded by surplus from GoFundMe donations that poured in when our story went national. The first recipient was Maria Santos, whose family lost their ranch to eminent domain abuse in Texas. Her thank you letter sits framed in my workshop, reminding me that standing up to bullies creates ripples that reach far beyond your own property lines. Jackson Torres and I launched Veterans Property Solutions, consulting with military families facing HOA harassment nationwide. Pro bono services for elderly and disabled property owners who can't afford legal defense against clipboard dictators. Our reputation grew faster than mountain pine trees. 3 television documentaries, 2 law school case studies, and enough speaking engagements to keep us busy until retirement. Sarah Kim won a regional journalism award for her HOA abuse investigation. Her documentary, The Road to Justice, airs annually on Property Rights Awareness Day, a holiday I never knew existed until I accidentally created the most famous example in state history. The practical takeaways became legend among property owners. Maintain complete documentation, photograph everything, know your state's property laws, and never underestimate the power of legal towing services when bullies need expensive education. Today, Willowbrook Estates operates under new leadership focused on actual community improvement instead of personal power trips. Annual block parties happen on my road, with my permission, bringing neighbors together instead of dividing them through manufactured conflicts. Property values stabilized 15% above pre-Vivian levels. Turns out communities thrive when residents feel secure in their ownership rights instead of constantly threatened by petty dictators with clipboards. The sweet taste of lasting justice fills my mouth every morning when I walk down the road my grandfather built, the road I defended, the road that taught an entire community about consequences.
58 empty driveways. That's what accountability looked like on a Saturday morning in Colorado. You know what stayed with me about Gary's story? It wasn't the tow truck or even Vivian meltdown in that pink backdrop. It was how quiet the neighborhood got afterward. Like everyone finally exhaled after holding their breath for 3 years. See, Gareth understood something most people don't. Bullies with clipboards are still just bullies. Doesn't matter if they call themselves HOA president or community standard director. Strip away the fancy title and legal sounding dress, and you're left with someone who thinks a lemonade badge gives them power over your property. Vivian made one fatal mistake. She confused being loud with being right. While she was busy playing neighborhood dictator, Gareth was building an airtight case with 37 years of documentation, property deeds, maintenance records, that's beautiful 72-hour termination notice that Colorado law let him serve like a legal hand granted. The best part, she has multiple chances to walk away. Settlement offers, what resignation, simple apology. Instead, She chose the passive education packet. Here my question for you. How many Vivian are terrorizing neighborhood right now, banking on good people being too polite to fight back? If you're dealing with HOA overreach, drop your story below. You're definitely not alone. He's like, if Justice Circle made your morning. Subscribe for more David vs. Goliath stories. Sometimes the quiet neighbor with an engineering degree knows exactly how to solve problems permanently.